evening and welcome to the debate of the morning. I'm Gabriella Salsalina Ginting as your host, and tonight's motion is parental courses should be mandatory as a marriage requirement for all future parents. In Indonesia, tens of thousands of child abuse and neglect cases are reported annually. Is mandatory training the answer or dangerous overreach? With us, Mr. Muhammad Levin Afrizal, Ph.D. in Sociology for our cons, and Ms. Amalia Ariella Mustazannah as the head of Indonesian Child Protection Commission for our program. We will start the extend opening statements, then reviews, and intense crossfire, audience questions, and final closes. Time is tight. Let's begin. Mr. Levin, your opening is in 2 minutes.
Thank you, Gabriella. I appreciate the urgency that motivates this proposal, but I'm concerned that this proposal substitutes symbolism for real change. Parenting is deeply personal, right? So, rooted in culture, poverty levels, education, and lived experiences. Mandatory course design centrally risk flattening those differences into a bureaucratic standard that may not fit local realities. And consider the enforcement, making certification a precondition for marriage or for legal recognition of parenthood creates an administrative gate. And who does it? How do we ensure fairness? In practice, marginalized communities often bear the brunt of such gains like insufficient access, travel costs, and lost work hours. These are the same families that may struggle and adding new requirement risk and penalizing them for poverty. So effectiveness is another worry. Knowledge is necessary but not sufficient. Good parenting requires emotional stability, support networks, and economic security. Completing a weekend course doesn't transform someone into a nurturing caregiver. And I argue for strengthening the voluntary education, home visiting programs, cash transfers, maternity or paternity leave, and community-based support that address root causes rather than a mandatory checkbox.
Thank you, Mr. Levin. Mrs. Amalia, opening 2 minutes.
Oh, thank you. I agree that parenting is complex, but complexity is not an excuse for inaction while children suffer. Mandatory parental courses are a preventive public health policy. Evidence from similar interventions like parenting programs in multiple countries shows structured parental education reduces child maltreatment, improves child development scores, and increases help-seeking behavior. In Indonesia, where awareness of safe childcare is very uneven, guaranteeing a baseline of knowledge for all future parents makes so much sense. This baseline would cover infant safety, like reducing SIDS risk and non-violent discipline and early childhood stimulation, nutrition, and how to spot and act on abuse. It is not moralizing. It is basically practical. Accessibility concerns are solvable, delivered through Mustazannah, religious centers, and mobile clinics, make it free or subsidized by the government, include remote and evening sessions. To your point about emotional readiness and economic supports, mandatory courses should be one of the component of a broader policy package that includes counseling referrals, and information on social services. The question is not whether this solves everything or not. It is whether it meaningfully reduces harm or not. And for that, I say yes.
Thank you, Mrs. Amalia. And for the review round, 90 seconds each. Mr. Levin, please.
Okay, so your proposals sound ideal, but politically, packages are rarely implemented as promised, right? Like the initial mandate tends to be the easiest to pass. The accompanying subsidies and the services are delayed or underfunded. And the result is people get a certificate but no follow-up support. And worse, such a program creates new like creates new bureaucracy vulnerable to misuse. Like imagine local officials leveraging accreditation to reward allies or punish dissidents, not impossible in places where institutions are weak. Cultural mismatch remains a core issue, like some practices labeled harmful by a central standard may be meaningful community rituals that need respectful engagement, not prohibitions, like mandates risk alienating communities. Alienation reduces cooperation in child welfare services. So finally, voluntary uptake with incentives can achieve widespread participation without coercion. So over childcare credits, priority in housing programs, or small cash bonuses for completion build trust rather than erecting gates.
Thank you, Mr. Levin. And now Mrs. Amalia review on 90 seconds.
All right, thank you, Gabby. So I would like to admit that Mr. Levin is right that policy implementation can fail, which is exactly why we need robust design upfront. An independent oversight council, civil society partners, transparent public reporting, and phased rollout with pilot evaluations. Use rigorous monitoring and allocate dedicated funding in the national budget so that the program is not hollow. About culture. Protecting children from harm is not cultural imperialism. We can and should engage cultural leaders to translate evidence-based practices into local contexts. For example, breastfeeding promotion matched to religious teachings or nonviolent conflict resolution rooted in local proverbs. A national standard need not erase cultural nuance. It protects core child rights. On incentive, they help, but incentives alone can leave coverage incomplete. If a parent decides not to learn safe infant sleep practices and a child dies, incentives did not prevent harm, Mr. Levin. Mandatory baseline education can be the ethical floor. Basic competency society demands to ensure children's safety. Thank you.
Crossfire extended. Each speaker gets 2 short opportunities to press the other. Responses limited to 40 seconds. Mrs. Amalia, start.
All right, so Mr. Levin, your fear of coercion. Tell me, when society requires drivers to pass a driving test to protect others, do you call that a coercion too? Parenting affects a child who cannot consent or protect themselves. Why should we apply a lower standard for parenthood than for activities that impact public safety?
Okay, that's pretty much a good analogy of yours, but driving tests regulate public mobility where external lights are widespread, and parenting primarily affects the private sphere. Also, we already have child protection laws, enforcement and services can and should be improved without tethering marriage to a potential. The state should support, not gatekeep. And so, Amalia, you stress evidence-based courses are like to reduce maltreatment. Could you cite a model and explain how it was adapted ethically to local communities without imposing values?
All right, sure. So we have come with the term of triple P, which is Parasitic Parenting Program, and WHO or UNICEF parenting programs have evidence across cultures. They're modular and emphasize non-violent, culturally adapted delivery. In trials, local facilitators train to adapt examples to context-preserved core outcomes while respecting the norms. Adaptation requires local stakeholders at design and delivery stages, not top-down imposition.
So, after hearing your thoughts on this particular problem, now I have questions for both of you. So, what about single parents or couple who marry late? How will mandatory courses handle diverse families?
Okay, I would like to answer that question. It's a great question, actually. Thank you. Policy must be inclusive. There's mandatory here means for anyone intending to become a legal parent or marrying with intent to have children. Alternatives is that a separate track for single parents is flexible timing, so before childbirth or within a defined period after, and online modules for later comers. The aim is to have universal access, not exclusion. For single parents, provide tailored content and additional support services, recognizing their particular pressures.
So as for me, I would add that rigid planning creates some kind of loopholes and inequities. If the resource is administered for marriage only, single parents or those who marry informally will be excluded or penalized. Flexibility risks enforcement issues, like too much rigidity risks injustice. That's why voluntary well resources programs with strong outreach serve diverse family forms better.
And I actually have another question. So, how do you prevent the program from being a perfunctory box ticking exercise?
So I will make it short. Like, okay, I'll put it like this: make it valuable and voluntary. If people see real benefit, follow-up visits, support networks, practical skills that improve family life, they'll engage genuinely. Bureaucratic mandates often produce perfunctory compliance, like build incentives for continuing participation, support groups, certifications tied to beneficial services, and credible community champions.
All right, so for me, myself, is that I would like to answer that prevention of box ticking requires design. So how? Is for two credits are based on demonstrated competency like role plays, observed practices, and many more. And then mandatory follow-ups and integration with other services like home visits or counseling. We're going to use independent audits and community evaluators and pilots with rigorous evaluation and iteration will reveal what motivates genuine learning. The goal is to make the course meaningful and not merely a stat.
Thank you. Now, for the final reveal shots for the second stage. First, Mr.
Okay, I don't dispute the intent. My point is that mandates carry risk to liberty and equality, and history shows well-intended policies can have adverse side effects when rolled out without resources and safeguards. So, prioritize scaling mobility programs, expanding social protection, and investing in community trust. That is the safer path.
Thank you. Now, Mrs. Amalia.
Thank you. So we can combine both approaches. The mandatory baseline training with strong safeguards, funded rollout, and community-led adaptation, plus expanded social support. The moral imperative is very much clear here. Children deserve a basic standard of care. If we are serious about prevention, we should ensure everyone who plans to become a parent knows the fundamentals on taking care of children.
Thank you. Now, for the closing statements for the presentation. Mrs. Amalia first.
All right. So I would like to say that mandating parental education, when done with equity and oversight, is a proactive step to protect children. So let's pilot, evaluate, and commit resources. Children cannot.
Now, Mr. Levin.
So, thank you. Um, Protect children from investment, not coercion. Build trust, expand services, and use incentives to encourage participation. Don't make marriage conditional on bureaucracy.
All right. Thank you both for a fierce, thoughtful debate. Viewers, this conversation will continue beyond the studio. Check the description for links to parenting resources, NGO contacts, and how to submit feedback to policymakers. I'm Gabriella Salsalina Ginting. Good night.